Hi, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to show you something most people never question. You walk into a grocery store, pick up foods labeled healthy, and feel confident you're doing the right thing. But what if some of those same foods are quietly working against your heart? Not overnight, not dramatically, but slowly, over time. Today, we're breaking down 10 so-called health foods that may be clogging your arteries without you realizing it. And in this first part, we're going deep into the first 5, so you can start seeing what's really happening behind the label. Let's start with something almost everyone trusts. Number 1, flavored yogurt. It looks clean, it looks light. It even says things like low fat or probiotic rich. But when you flip the label, you'll notice something most people ignore: sugar content. Many flavored yogurts contain as much sugar as dessert. That changes how your body responds. Instead of supporting your metabolism, it creates blood sugar spikes. Those spikes trigger insulin, and over time, repeated insulin surges contribute to inflammation inside your blood vessels. That inflammation is one of the early steps in plaque buildup. Now add in the fact that many low-fat yogurts replace natural fats with additives and stabilizers. These processed ingredients don't nourish your body the same way whole foods do. They extend shelf life, improve texture, and increase sweetness, but at a cost. Your arteries don't respond well to repeated exposure to high sugar and processed fillers. It's not about one cup of yogurt, it's about daily consumption, over weeks, over months. That's where the damage builds quietly, and because it's marketed as healthy, most people never think twice. Now let's move to something even more surprising. Number 2, whole wheat bread. It sounds like a better choice, and in some cases it is. But here's the issue. Most grocery store whole wheat breads aren't truly whole. They're highly processed. The grains are broken down into fine flour. That means your body digests it quickly, almost like white bread. This leads to rapid blood sugar spikes, similar to what we just discussed. But there's another problem. Many of these breads contain added sugars, preservatives, and refined oils to improve taste and shelf life. These hidden ingredients slowly contribute to metabolic stress. Over time, that stress affects how your body manages cholesterol. And when cholesterol isn't handled properly, it begins to deposit in artery walls. That's how clogging starts. Not from one meal, but from repeated exposure. There's also sodium. Bread is one of the biggest hidden sources of salt in the average diet, and sodium raises blood pressure. Increased pressure damages artery walls, making it easier for plaque to stick. So even though it says whole wheat, the reality is much more complex. It's not the label. It's the processing behind it. Next is something people feel proud to eat. Number 3, granola bars. They're convenient, portable, marketed as energy-boosting snacks. But most granola bars are closer to candy bars than health food. They're packed with added sugars, often in multiple forms: honey, corn syrup, brown rice syrup, cane sugar. Different names, same effect. When you eat them, your blood sugar rises quickly, then drops. That cycle creates instability in your system. Over time, it contributes to insulin resistance, and insulin resistance is strongly linked to heart disease. But there's more. These bars often contain processed vegetable oils, oils that have been refined, heated, and chemically treated. These fats can become oxidized, which makes them harmful to your cardiovascular system. Oxidized fats increase inflammation, and inflammation plays a major role in artery damage. Now combine that with frequent snacking, one bar in the morning, another in the afternoon, and you create a steady stream of sugar and processed fats entering your system. It doesn't feel extreme, it feels normal, but that's exactly why it's dangerous, because the impact builds slowly, without clear warning signs. Now let's talk about something that seems like the perfect heart-healthy choice. Number 4, store-bought smoothies. They're colorful, fresh-looking, often labeled as natural or green blends. But most bottled smoothies are highly concentrated sugar drinks. Even if the sugar comes from fruit, the problem is the same. There's little to no fiber. Without fiber, your body absorbs sugar rapidly. That leads to spikes, and repeated spikes stress your cardiovascular system. But there's another layer. Many store-bought smoothies include fruit juice concentrates, added sweeteners, and flavor enhancers. These increase the sugar load even further. Some bottles contain more sugar than soda, and because it's marketed as healthy, people drink it without hesitation, daily. Sometimes multiple times a day. Over time, this constant sugar intake contributes to triglyceride buildup in the blood. Elevated triglycerides are a major risk factor for clogged arteries. They make your blood thicker, harder to circulate, and more likely to deposit fat along artery walls. Again, it's not one smoothie. It's the pattern. the routine, the repeated exposure that creates long-term damage. Now the fifth one is something almost everyone uses. Number 5, vegetable oils. They're everywhere. Cooking oils, salad dressings, packaged foods, and they're often labeled as heart healthy. But here's the truth. Most vegetable oils are highly processed, extracted using heat and chemicals, then refined, bleached, and deodorized. This process strips away nutrients and creates unstable fats. These fats are prone to oxidation, especially when heated. And oxidized oils are extremely damaging to your arteries. They trigger inflammation, and inflammation damages the inner lining of blood vessels. Once that lining is damaged, plaque begins to form more easily. Over time, this leads to narrowing of the arteries, reduced blood flow, increased risk of heart attacks and strokes. What makes this worse is frequency. These oils aren't used occasionally, they're used daily. In cooking, in packaged snacks, in restaurant meals. That means your body is constantly exposed, and constant exposure leads to accumulation, which leads to long-term damage. Quiet, gradual, but very real. And this is where most people get it wrong. They focus on single foods, but the real problem is repetition. These foods don't damage your arteries instantly. They do it slowly, through patterns, daily habits, choices that feel harmless, but add up over time. And that's what makes them dangerous, because you don't feel it happening until one day you do. Let's continue, because the next 5 are even more deceptive. Number 6, low-fat salad dressings. This one catches almost everyone. You build a healthy salad, leafy greens, vegetables, maybe some lean protein, and then you pour dressing on top, thinking it completes the meal. But most low-fat dressings are engineered products. When fat is removed, something has to replace it. Usually, it's sugar, and not just a little. Many of these dressings contain multiple forms of added sugar along with thickeners, preservatives, and highly refined oils. So what happens? Instead of nourishing your body, you create a spike in blood sugar. Then insulin rises. Then inflammation follows. And over time, that inflammation damages your blood vessels. There's also sodium, often in high amounts. Sodium raises blood pressure, and high blood pressure weakens artery walls. Once the walls are weakened, plaque builds faster. So what started as a healthy salad quietly turns into a meal that stresses your heart, not because of the vegetables, but because of what you added to them. Number 7, protein shakes. This one is heavily marketed. High protein, muscle support, healthy aging. But many store-bought protein shakes are ultra-processed. They contain added sugars, artificial sweeteners, stabilizers, flavor enhancers, and in some cases, low-quality protein sources. Now here's the issue. Your body doesn't just respond to protein. It responds to the entire formula. Artificial sweeteners can disrupt metabolism. They confuse how your body regulates hunger and insulin. Some studies suggest they may even increase cravings. Then there are additives, chemicals designed to improve texture and shelf life. Your body doesn't recognize them as food, which creates low-level stress inside your system, and stress leads to inflammation. Combine that with frequent use, daily shakes, sometimes multiple times a day, and you create a pattern of processed intake that slowly affects your cardiovascular health. Again, it's not one shake, it's repetition. Number 8, breakfast cereals, even the healthy ones. Walk down the cereal aisle and you'll see words like whole grain, heart healthy, high fiber, but turn the box around and the story changes. Most cereals, even the healthy ones, are highly processed grains. They're broken down, refined, then reshaped. That means your body digests them quickly, which leads to rapid blood sugar spikes. And just like before, spikes lead to insulin surges. Over time, that pattern contributes to insulin resistance, and insulin resistance is directly linked to heart disease. But there's more. Many cereals contain added sugars, even if they don't taste overly sweet, and they're often eaten in large portions. A bowl becomes 2 becomes a habit. Add milk, sometimes sweetened, and suddenly your healthy breakfast becomes a high-sugar meal, one that your body has to manage every single morning. Over time, this creates metabolic strain, and metabolic strain leads to artery damage, slowly, quietly. Number 9, packaged fruit snacks and dried fruit. This one feels natural. It comes from fruit. It looks simple, it sounds harmless. But here's the reality. Dried fruit is concentrated sugar. When water is removed, the sugar stays, and it becomes more dense. So a small handful contains far more sugar than you expect. And because it's easy to eat, you often eat more. Packaged fruit snacks are even worse. They're usually made with fruit concentrates, added sugars, and gelatin-like fillers. They're closer to candy than fruit. But because they're marketed with words like real fruit, they feel healthy. And that's the problem, because repeated high sugar intake leads to elevated triglycerides. And elevated triglycerides increase the risk of plaque buildup in arteries. They make your blood thicker, less efficient, and over time, that affects circulation. Again, it's not the occasional snack. It's the daily habit. Now the final one, and this might surprise you the most. Number 10, plant-based meat alternatives. These products are exploding in popularity. They're marketed as healthier, cleaner, better for your heart. But most plant-based meats are highly processed. They're not simple vegetables. They're engineered products, made from protein isolates, refined oils, flavor compounds, binders, and often high amounts of sodium. Now here's the issue. Processing changes how food behaves in your body. It removes natural structure, alters digestion, and introduces additives your body doesn't need. Many of these products rely heavily on refined vegetable oils, the same oils we talked about earlier, and when consumed frequently, they contribute to inflammation. There's also sodium, sometimes extremely high levels, which again raises blood pressure and over time damages artery walls. This doesn't mean plant-based eating is bad. Whole plant foods are powerful, but processed alternatives are a different category entirely. And when consumed regularly, they can quietly work against your heart. Now step back for a moment. Look at all 10. They have one thing in common. They're trusted. They're marketed as healthy. They fit easily into daily routines. And that's exactly why they're dangerous. Not because they cause instant damage, but because they don't. They create slow damage, invisible damage, the kind that builds quietly until it reaches a point where your body can't ignore it anymore. And this is the most important shift you can make. Stop thinking in terms of good and bad foods. Start thinking in patterns, because your heart doesn't respond to one meal. It responds to repetition, daily habits, long-term behavior. The goal isn't fear, it's awareness, because once you see what's happening, you can adjust. Small changes, better choices, more balance. And those small changes, when repeated consistently, become powerful. They reduce strain, they support your system, they protect your heart, without extreme diets, without confusion, without guesswork. Because in the end, the foods that harm you the most are rarely the obvious ones. They're the ones you trust, without question. And that's exactly where the real shift begins. Not in fear, not in restriction, but in awareness. Because once you stop trusting labels blindly, you start paying attention differently. You start noticing patterns, how certain foods make you feel, how your energy changes, how your body responds over time. That awareness is powerful because it puts you back in control. Not the marketing, not the packaging, not the claims on the front of the box, but you. And when you take control, your decisions become intentional, not automatic, not based on habit, but based on understanding. Let's take something simple. You walk into a grocery store. You see 2 products, both labeled healthy. But now, you pause. You look deeper. You read the ingredients. You think about how processed it is. You think about sugar, sodium, oils, frequency. That one moment of pause changes everything. Because that's where better decisions begin. Not from perfection, but from awareness. And here's something most people don't realize. Your body is incredibly responsive. Even after years of habits, even after decades of routine, it adapts, it adjusts, it improves when given the right conditions. You don't need extreme changes. You don't need to eliminate everything overnight. That rarely works, and it doesn't last. What works is consistency, small adjustments, repeated daily, replacing one processed snack, reducing added sugar gradually, choosing whole foods more often, cooking with better oils, paying attention to portion sizes. These are simple shifts, but they compound, and over time, they create a completely different outcome. Because your heart isn't tracking one decision, it's tracking direction, where your habits are moving, over weeks, over months, over years. That's how plaque builds, but it's also how it slows down, how inflammation reduces, how blood pressure stabilizes. The same system that creates damage can also create recovery if you change the input, and that's the opportunity most people miss. They think once damage starts, it's permanent. But that's not entirely true. Your body is constantly repairing, constantly adjusting, constantly trying to find balance. The problem is, most people keep feeding it the same patterns, the same triggers, the same stress, so nothing changes. But when you shift those patterns, even slightly, your body responds. Slowly at first, subtly, almost unnoticeably. Then over time, more clearly, more consistently, better energy, better circulation, better overall stability. That's how progress works. Not instantly, but steadily. And the key is, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be aware and consistent, because perfection creates pressure, and pressure leads to burnout, but consistency creates results. Now think about this. Most people don't realize there's a problem until something happens. A diagnosis, a warning sign, a sudden event. But by that point, the process has already been building for years, and that's why this matters now, not later. Because the earlier you understand these patterns, the easier it is to adjust them before they turn into something serious, before they reach a point where your body struggles to recover. And that's what this is really about. Not avoiding every single bad food, but recognizing the patterns that quietly create risk so you can interrupt them early, effectively. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You start noticing how often these foods appear in your meals, in your snacks, in your daily routine. And more importantly, you start realizing how easy it is to adjust. Not eliminate everything, just shift direction. And that shift is what protects your heart long-term. Because long-term health isn't built on big moments. It's built on small decisions, repeated over time. So the next time you reach for something labeled healthy, pause, look closer, think beyond the label, think about the pattern. Because your heart isn't responding to what it says on the package. It's responding to what you do every single day. And that's where real control exists. Not in trends, not in marketing, but in your daily choices. So start small, stay consistent, and most importantly, stay aware. Because awareness is what turns information into action, and action into results. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because we break down things like this every week. Simple, clear insights that help you protect your health without confusion. And if there's one habit you've been doing that surprised you today, drop it in the comments below. Because the more we share, the more we learn. And learning like this isn't just about information. It's about awareness that sticks. The kind that changes how you shop, how you eat, how you think about your health every single day. Because once you understand what's really happening, you stop relying on guesswork. You stop following every new trend, and you start making decisions that actually support your body. That's how long-term health is built, not through extremes, but through clarity and consistent action. So if this video opened your eyes even a little, take that momentum and use it. Watch the next video on the screen, because we're breaking down even more everyday habits that quietly affect your heart, the ones most people still don't see coming. And if you're serious about protecting your health after 60, this is where it starts.